Good evening, everyone, citizens of the internet and people interested in how stuff works and things and Linux and bits and pieces. I wanted to share some details. First of all, I uncovered here on other news sites, stuff scrolling by. I quickly first wanted to say, not ARMSOCs, Lenovo PrivacyGuard, although this is a second part of this topic, why people tune in before we forget about this. PrivacyGuard, a feature of displays here of Lenovo ThinkPad goodness that restricts the viewing angle, and I was very much aware of this when I spec'd out here Lenovo ThinkPad stuff for testing and reviewing and Linux use and such. I thought it is a permanent feature that you then have this limited viewing angle there that people like in a bank and top security code stuff and such can't view your screen. And only with patches scrolling by, I realized, wait a second, this is a dynamic feature. I totally didn't realize this, and maybe not you. Not really sure how many people really would want to use this. I personally, maybe not, just because I would maybe worried that this takes a little bit of display fidelity away with colors and display brightness and stuff. But if you're into such kind of top secret stuff, here's the Linux patch for that, just actually from May already, but I think only now it was maybe just recently pulled or something. But I also wanted to share this detail, and then we turn to ARM laptops. That is implemented with ACPI, something we probably also want to take a closer look at. Of course, the Advanced Control and Power Management interface of x86 as per the last 2 decades or so. Before there was APM, Advanced Power Management Interface, or something of that sort, which, well, advanced the APM did nearly nothing except turning the PC laptop off and on and reading the battery, basically, more or less. Anyway, so this driver is totally small, and I want to point this out. So not only that this feature is dynamic, which probably 90% may not have realized, although maybe everyone knew and I just was not using ThinkPads. But this driver is also as part of Lenovo ACPI ThinkPad goodness here, yeah, ThinkPad_ACPI in the Linux kernel. Also super tiny and just calling one method. And this is also my recurring shout out here, not only P3 or GMA or Silicon Motion or certainly NVIDIA, of all of those. This is not intellectual property or top secret. It's even exposed as an ACPI control method. And how simple this stuff sometimes can be. So if you sit with some of your favorite gadget and some minor detail doesn't work, then yeah, it might be as simple as this. So just on-off. Also, I one recurring code review shout out here. I sometimes don't quite understand why people call this stuff differently. They call this here LCD shadow. No idea why they call this shadow. LCD shadow subdriver for Lenovo PrivacyGuard. I would that calls this then Lenovo PrivacyGuard or PrivacyGuard on-off. Maybe there's a good reason that internally it is called LCD shadow, but for me it doesn't really make the most sense. And then you wonder all the constant renaming in the Linux kernel. Yeah, someone names it LCD shadow, and then in 1 year later they substitute this to PrivacyGuard because everyone was wondering what this actually was about. So just said, this is just calling so set, and so on-off is get handle. Getting the ACPI handle of a control message named SSSS, display shadow set something state or so. And the other, there's also like get, which is like get shadow state, whatever, I don't know what. And yeah, that's the whole driver basically. Resume, resetting this, reading and writing and registering, and that's it. Totally simple and such kind of stuff. I'm actually surprised. But the recurring shout out here, individuals like this guy and myself and stuff like with, even I with all the other, well, certainly Octane at P3, but even Pulseboard GMA 500 or stuff like a frequency range here of bass frequencies and microphone input. All the many details that individuals without even getting paid need to reverse engineer and do. A little bit of a shame that maybe apparently Lenovo did not do this. And you see, these are totally low-hanging fruits, right? In my opinion, Lenovo had for many years already done this. Anyway, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, it's dynamic and it's now there, at least in patch, or maybe coming to the next stable release series. In other news, here's also Linux Lenovo Yoga C630 built from Qualcomm, similar enough to the SDM something blah blah blah. And so this is some more infrastructure support stuff for ARM drivers. And I was not really aware, because I certainly can't monitor each and every model that is this here. I didn't even really quite realize that there is an ARM laptop. So not only are all the ARM laptops beating Apple to that, because the year-long rumor already that Apple might do ARM laptops eventually. So yeah, all the other PC vendors already beating Apple to that, apparently. And there were even this Microsoft Surface RT stuff that probably wasn't the most popular, because it was ARM-based and didn't run x86 programs at its full native performance. There was later emulation, and also I think initially maybe it only ran Windows Store stuff, right? Not side-loaded native apps. Anyway, also I think the Microsoft Surface RT was quite locked with Secure Boot, the regular end-user preventing side-loading their own operating system like Linux. And only later, I think the Surfaces, well, besides they are discontinued, right? Not even really sure if they receive updates, no idea. Maybe leave in the comments below. I think later there was a security issue found with something, and maybe since then it is theoretically possible to sideload Linux, but a recurring theme here, right? This vendor locked in stuff from Microsoft or Apple or whoever, unless there is a security vulnerability, like in the PS3 and Nintendo Switch and stuff, you can't sideload your own software, which in my opinion is a little bit of a shame. Let's see, I guess I'm using a ThinkPad because peak bugs on macOS and broken keyboards. I so far found the ThinkPad to be the most amazing for the most part. Anyway, there's always some small stuff, and I probably need to do a small update to this T490, which otherwise is T490S, which otherwise is quite good. Full disclosure, Lenovo provided this to me for a couple of months, which is pretty amazing, without any strings attached, and I soon need to say a tiny little small negative thing about it, but otherwise it's quite amazing. I personally would configure the slightly thicker and higher performance T490 without S, or maybe the AMD model. Anyway, ARM laptops are not really worth it. Comments in the audience, welcome Devi, and let's see how many people have, a couple of people. So my question is, because the price of, so of course ARM laptops, and fun fact, you've seen my collection of random stuff if you're into vintage and retro stuff like P3, SG Octane, Oko, Model 1, what other fun stuff, all the other fun stuff that Apple G4 and G5 and stuff, or SparkStation. If you're into this fun stuff, plenty of videos there in the channel history. Back a really long time ago, so this ARM laptop stuff is not really a so new thing. Over a decade ago, I nearly purchased one already, ARM netbook. I wonder, was this something like a Toshiba AC100 or something? Here, something of that sort. And yeah, 2010, so much to my memory. Actually not the worst looking. I nearly purchased. It's actually relatively pretty cool looking. I even had a hands-on there on a local store there in Berlin a decade ago. It was relatively okayish. I mean, the space used here is for the keyboard quite good. Also this pseudo fake plastic carbon whatever stuff there. The only thing as usual, the display was certainly not amazing. Probably 1024 by 600 or some stuff. Not even sure what was the price. Do they have here price? Maybe US dollar, no. Of course, it was a decade ago, this was only gigahertz A9 was, yeah, also GeForce, maybe the small display and GeForce nonsense made me not purchase it. Anyway, so much to that is not a totally new thing. However, this thing, maybe this was not even so cheap. Maybe it even was 500 euro or something, but or maybe it was 400. Anyway, the question why I wonder is it really worth it? Because it's 773 US dollar plus taxes, right? So 700 pounds, 700 euros, something of that sort. And for that money, of course, you get a pretty decent entry level ThinkPad, something like the E480 or 85 or something. or many others. And then the question is, you see right now, it does not just work. I'm actually surprised that it does work. I would have expected they locked it down with Secure Boot as per the usual vendor policy and Microsoft Windows friendliness and partner cooperation, marketing money, bribing stuff there, allegedly, apparently, maybe sometimes. And so apparently you can load this. I've not yet researched what kind of bootloader, or is it, maybe it's even EFI. But yeah, here's so some stuff. And it's not even fully featured, right? So even with this, I think supported with this patch, so keyboard, battery monitoring, and there you see all custom patches, right? USB, host, Bluetooth. I think other stuff like Wi-Fi and other fun stuff do not yet work, as I've seen somewhere else listed. And whatever, certainly. So you buy something, unless you want Windows, which maybe most people here on this channel anyway, or in general, unless you want to have the amazing Microsoft Windows update dance and Windows vendor login stuff. So if you want something free and open, hackable, and also open source ecosystem in there, not fully supported, maybe soon, or maybe it's a fun project, right? If you say this is amazing, don't want to stop you to buy it and hack on it. But certainly not fully featured. And then even if it would be, you can't just boot anything else, right? So even if you have some x86 programs on Windows games, you can't run Wine. Well, you can run ARM, Windows Wine for ARM, but certainly it's the same problem as on Windows, right? Why would you run Wine for ARM if there are already so few Windows ARM programs to start with? Certainly not Crysis or Doom or whatever the latest and greatest fun Windows games are. So no Wine gaming, no virtualization. That's the next thing, right? Well, there is probably virtualization, but only ARM, right? So ARM on ARM. So you can certainly, maybe most likely, boot QEMU, KVM ARM, like run a Linux or Kubernetes or all the other fun stuff on ARM, but not like Windows, what most people do. I've seen on macOS and Linux, certainly most professional people run their VMs for testing or software development on like running Linux or maybe macOS X, but certainly more often Linux now, and develop for Windows and stuff. So run a Windows VM and QEMU, KVM, and VirtualBox or whatever your taste might be. And that is exactly what you can't do, and what is exactly I already predicted with on the Apple side that will be a huge showstopper for ARM MacBooks. So I'm not really sure for, well, I understand Lenovo making premium devices, certainly €773. The majority of this cost goes to the display and PCB and battery and case and digitizer there, and yoga hinge, which personally mostly I would not use, but anyway. So maybe it saves you $20, $30, $50. I'm actually, so this is, I think, what was it, Snapdragon. So this is the overview of the device constantly. Yeah, okay, it has LTE, which you also get on ThinkPads, right? And personally, I rarely use it. I much prefer to pair with a smartphone and have one SIM card and just usually Bluetooth actually for energy efficiency and such, and constantly connected. You're not really that much into, but again, you can have this with a regular ThinkPads. Cool, calm, well, okay, cool and calm, certainly one point, but of course, certainly less performance, right? I mean, cool and calm, although ARM could be slightly more efficient, but even the latest and greatest high performance ARM cores, usually as amazing as they are, still lagging a little bit in performance towards AMD Ryzen and Intel Core i9 and stuff. Well, looks good, sounds good, feels good. Well, the looks good, sounds good, feels good, you also have from regular ThinkPads. And yeah, I mean, of course, I appreciate the effort because we certainly need more competition beside ARM, beside AMD and Intel. But also, yeah, it continues only a full HD display. Not sure if you can configure this, but maybe they don't have too many build for order options here. So Qualcomm Adreno 630, well, actually up to 8 GB, which is also the entry level stuff. Maybe then even soldered, I guess. Maybe not user upgradable up to so many. I wonder if it is M2. I have right now no idea. Yeah, mediocre. I'm not sure if it's the same webcam, but maybe not the most amazing. Combo audio jack, SIM holder, and this fun stuff here. Do they have a configure button here? I think I didn't really see. Where's the purchase now button? But yeah, for the price, I only wanted to bring it to your attention. It exists if you are totally into this for some reason. Ratings and reviews, where would be, did I overlook our current models here? Probably. Modern websites are here. So starting from, so you have all 2 point, actually, so okay, fair enough. It's nearly 3 gigahertz and what is it, quad core or whatever. And display is only the same. So okay, it starts at 4 gigabytes, so that for 773 you only get 4 gigabyte, which somehow, yeah, price-wise, I personally would a little bit expect that to start a little bit lower, to be honest. And 8 gigabyte, yeah, it's, yeah, certainly it's not made for people to run virtual machines and gaming and such. And battery apparently the same. I wonder with 60 watt hours, I would expect this actually, so maybe it has total long battery life, so maybe it has 24 hours, I would need to check. Maybe I should actually check with Lenovo if they want to send me one, but even then, even if I would test Linux, you see, you would need to compile the stuff. Certainly I sit a day or two just to compile the stuff together with T2 from the sources and get this running. A little bit wondering how many cores this has. Maybe we quickly check this here on an internet search next to us. And then we see also what kind of comments we have in the audience. Hey, quite some people here and quite some comments. Welcome everyone, I check this in a second. So this is an, oh, fair enough, it's an 8 core. So, so performance-wise, that would be interesting actually. 8 core, 10 nanometer, so that is actually kind of Intel level, although I heard I need to make maybe a dedicated research and video. The structural size of Intel is said to be, the number is said not to be comparable directly. So TSMC 7 nanometer apparently is similar to Intel's 10 nanometer because they measure the whole logic gate and the other the structural size of whatever. So that's a little bit apple and oranges, I always read. Maybe I need to take a closer look. So 10 nanometer, it might be slightly worse than Intel's current, and if it's a similar TSMC or whatever, AMD is of course on the chiplets anyway on 7 nanometer. So yeah, but it's fair enough up to the speeds of up to a lower. This is a little bit misleading. Why is this the speeds of up to a lower? 2.49, what does it mean up to a lower? Strange stuff. Anyway, but 8 core is already way more than I expected. Actually, maybe that's what maybe this is 8 core and 3.5. What did they list here? Would this model number actually make a little bit of sense? Or no, this is 296 gigahertz. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, slightly better than I expected, to be honest. 8 core, that would be actually quite interesting. Let's check. So for the ARM side, I would most likely expect something slightly cheaper, and yeah, but and also compatibility, as I said. But leave me in the comments below, what do you think about this? But in the short term, that's of course what we have. Also on the plus side, I personally and maybe most others here do not have binary only software, except if you want to play a AAA game. Otherwise, of course, open source. That is of course the total beauty and benefit of open source, and especially our T2SD. Also, of course, Debian is also available for ARM, but with T2 you can automatically recompile everything for ARM, RISC-V, and Musel, C-Lang, LLVM stuff. So yeah, you can certainly just run GIMP, Firefox, and maybe Chrome. Not sure if you compile it, not probably. But there you see, maybe Google doesn't even have, except the Chrome books, maybe not a dedicated regular vanilla Chrome download. There the fun starts already. Certainly you might be able to compile it from the sources or get some ARM community built Chrome there, but otherwise there you see the limitations. For me, usually that's none, unless, because I usually don't use binary only software, but even for me when I develop and even run Mac OS or Windows virtual machine in QEMU, then yeah, I can't have it there anyway. But let's see what we have there in the audience. Quite some comments. That is quite amazing as usual. Does your laptop require binary? Does your laptop? So you mean this ThinkPad binary only? So if you mean the ThinkPad Devi, then does your laptop require any binary blobs? Well, only the firmware, which I'm not the greatest fan of. So there is this Intel wireless firmware, and certainly actually maybe not sure if Intel GPUs have firmware on Linux. If it would be AMD, then also the AMD firmware for the GPU, and yeah, then the binary-only BIOS. I'm for this. You could argue. Personally, I'm relatively okay-ish with binary-only firmware, though not the most amazing. The only thing that I really hate this firmware stuff that you can't fix it. So as I said already multiple times, my Microsoft Surface has some power management issue in the firmware for the wireless. The Marvel, I think. What is it? Yeah, M Wi-Fi X or something. Marvel wireless. So I need to my startup script disable power management for the Wi-Fi. Otherwise, if it's too idle, then the Wi-Fi kills, and even reloading the kernel module doesn't fix it. You need to reboot then, and that is a long-standing bug, and somehow Marvel or whoever doesn't really want to fix it. That is totally annoying. And there you see binary-only vendors give a shit, like AMD's random initialization there for older FX processors, and you can never fix it. And similar in NVIDIA GPUs, you can't run them how you want with dynamic reclocking and stuff, because NVIDIA is just not releasing the firmware there for this crap, which I'm totally 0% cool with. Totally a dick move there of NVIDIA. Upside code running in the Intel ME. Yeah, as I said, the firmware, right? But you usually have this, even if it's like totally open source, you often have maybe even sometimes network cards, maybe even the bloody TG3 in the Mac Mini or others. So you can just look this up in the Linux firmware packages. There are 50 megabyte or something of firmware, even old Sound Blaster stuff and others. So there are even definitely SCSI and RAID cards and stuff. They often have firmware, and usually it is Wi-Fi, and at least Wi-Fi and GPU has some firmware blob. Yeah, not the most amazed, but yeah, whatever. The laptop give more performance on Linux that brand out there, Debian-based distro. I don't know. Yeah, Dell is relatively okay. Just I don't like the aluminum. I have aluminum from MacBook. Where did I even? It's charging in the corner. I don't want aluminum stuff anymore because sometimes it gives me electric fizz on usually international power grids, and that I'm done with it. Over it. It's scratchy. You take it 100 times into your back and stuff, and then you get scratches everywhere. And this is what. Otherwise, the Dells are pretty cool. I have a couple of reviews. They're mostly okay. But on ThinkPads you also get matte displays. On, I think, Dell XPS are usually glossy, but yeah, mostly okay with whatever. And some keyboards are totally annoying. Some Dell keyboards, XPS keyboards, have this arrow keys, page up and down in the arrow keys. I made a video about that. That is totally, can't get used to this. At least the ThinkPad has this with a little bit of a border there. Can also, yeah, could change the view, but whatever, there's a dedicated video. If I get crazy with the keyboard, I will not buy it. And unfortunately, there was one pretty cool Dell XPS 2-in-1, which is with AMD graphics, was relatively good, amazing / something. But the maglev keyboard, especially with the page up and page down keys, totally killed it for me. So yeah, can't buy this. And Harry Hodge Pi 4 looks amazing. Do you mean Raspberry Pi? Or I think in 3 months the drivers will be great for writing code, playing GameCube and PPSP, something surfing the web. You mean Raspberry Pi, right? I would probably wait. The initial revision had some design issues with the USB port, that some cables don't work. I would probably at least wait for the B revision or whatever, Mark II, for having the USB ports fully working, and not you plug something in and then it doesn't work because it registers at whatever, because they mixed, they basically, instead of 2 resistors, they used 1 resistor, so they saved parts, a fraction of a cent, and messed up the USB power logic there. It's a little bit hilarious. By the way, I think the Raspberry Pi historically with the Broadcom has quite some firmware blob, right? So I think it boots really strange, as far as I once read and heard. I've not personally done this, but I think the Raspberry Pi Broadcom boots over the GPU, so it needs to load proprietary GPU firmware, and then somehow the GPU, like secure boot, kind of boots the rest of the system. Little bit strange setup, but yeah, it certainly works. But somehow the Raspberry Pi people also have chosen one of the, well, previously not the most amazing open source. Now, of course, with the Raspberry Pi stuff, the drivers are mostly there. they open there's the graphic stuff a little bit, but the boot, yeah, but maybe not the most amazing, straightforward, but system on a chip choice. But then maybe all of the ARM SoCs are a little bit quirky and a little bit, nah. And yeah, this is of course a huge issue with ARM, right? This is why historically you needed a Linux kernel for each and every ARM SoC, which is totally not amazing. It's not like universal PC compatibility like on x86. And that became a little bit better now. In my opinion, it should have be done a decade earlier. But what they have done the last years is some device tree similar to PowerPC and Spark or so, I guess. Having to be able to share one ARM kernel on multiple boards. It was of course really hilarious that you had to compile the Linux kernel matching for each and every board. That is of course totally not amazing infrastructure. Harry writes, here's a quad-core A72. By the way, speaking about Raspberry Pi, I have a Pi Zero here somewhere. So I actually so this is actually the Zero, although it's a little bit cheating because you can barely get the Pi Zero for the list price of €5 a pound or whatever. And so mostly they don't sell it even, right? So it's of course quite interesting for the price. Wanted to do something at problems, I missed the cable. But anyway, of course a really nice hacking device, right? If you like James Bond or Sneakers or the other fun hacking movie, Snowden style, want to leave it there in some power distribution stuff at your bank, airport. I'm not, by the way, don't want to condemn this. So Scratch Airport, your favorite government agency where you need to spy on foreign countries and stuff. It's certainly a nice device to place somewhere, and also of course it is the least performance. But yeah, the price wise, I never could source a €5 part, and I think so the wireless one is anyway 20 or something. But yeah, certainly for €5 or British pound, certainly I don't really want to manufacture that for that price, right? Because the bill of materials is already $5, so a little bit, yeah, whatever. But anyway, you can barely, in my experience, you can barely buy it for $5 anyway. Drivers etc. would be really good on Dell laptops running. Well, I have usually 99 it's not like a Dell laptop, it's the same components anyway. It's retake coded, it's the same wireless. I would not really sell the Dell laptops have better driver support on ThinkPads or most other. I would just not buy esoteric stuff like Apple MacBooks because they have their own stupid stuff. Been there, done that. Even secret EFI magic protocols not to hide some hardware. Like I made a video that Macs switch off the integrated GPU if they don't have a secret handshake protocol, and then of course failing keyboards and T2 security stupidity and not working SSD unless you patch this. And so yeah, it's mostly the same x86. It's of course, so wouldn't really, but also Apple and some other stuff like Razer maybe, and so like esoteric devices probably wouldn't recommend it the most because such kind of strange Windows borked laptops often have the strangest driver quirks and wired together integrated circuit combinations. Also, I heard from maybe Louis Rossmann and others, allegedly the Razers have a relatively high defect rate, overheating, power MOSFETs or stuff, overheating, getting defect and stuff. So yeah, and then I would rather buy something from a real mess vendor where I can really get spare parts and get good offers and stuff, and yeah, fun stuff like that. Just want HDMI on the Pi. I just wanted a full HD. Yeah, okay. A full HD. Yeah, this is also the thing here. But yeah, full HD. You can of course have an adapter. You have the same here on that, I guess, adapter here, which I in the meantime have anyway for the camera. So I need mini HD or mini micro HDMI on the Lumix G70 here for YouTube capture anyway. So yeah, whatever. I only worry. So far, I don't plug in the HDMI cable on the Lumix G70 or whatever that is too often. So mostly it's standing here a couple of days and then I pack it, trail somewhere, whatever, or it's in the office. I would worry a little bit with this micro connectors that they fail after a couple of hundred times, so I prefer not to touch it too much. Also, you see from famous YouTubers like Casey Neistat or stuff that they often break the camera vlogging around and then they hit something with a microphone jack or stuff, and they even break the 3.5mm TRS microphone jack. And yeah, this is also always need the smaller the stuff, the easier it fails, right? So yeah, but otherwise, if you have your Raspberry Pi, micro HDMI for me not the biggest showstopper, but the only problem is the smaller the stuff is. Even, sorry, I would worry a little bit that if you plug it in and out, that you shear it off of the PCB, or either the connector wears off with plugging it in and out again, or you really need to probably be really careful plugging it in and out again, not to shear the soldered SMD connector there off of the PCB. But if you have it connected behind your display or somewhere and you rarely ever touch it, then yeah. But I agree, it's slightly inconvenient and certainly one point of failure, one of the easiest points of failure to break it, probably, I guess. The Snapdragon 8X or whatever it's called looks great. RISC Linux is exciting. Probably you mean RISC 5, right? Librem project, cool. Fedora, Manjaro, Olive, cute ARM projects. Linux is blessed with hopefully keep up with Mac and Windows 10, right, so to speak. And yeah, something else. Git Repro Arch laptop build has lots of base laptop which and what's supported. Yeah, you need to be careful again if you choose something. Probably check a list what works and to buy something where most works, or be prepared to port a Wi-Fi driver, or maybe it's just differently connected PCIe versus SDIO or whatever. So maybe you can even get something to work with, some sort of programming experience, more or less, or something. Pi and, yes, this Pi and 64 stuff is probably cool. Certainly nice, flexible to work with. Certainly something for another video. Also, the one thing I also regret, there was once from, actually I had this probably so long on this was this ARM laptop, this was it Nova something from Bunny, someone from, yeah, this one, this Novena. This is also way before my YouTube experience stuff here. Of course, one of the super successful crowd supply stuff. Collected $782,000 of the 250 goal. And this was also nearly, not only 5 years ago. I wanted to say decade, only 5 years ago. This I regret a little bit. However, I think this was ARM, right? Or was it PowerPC? Was it Freescale? Or this certainly is a totally nice, hackable. And there you see, you don't need this stupid MacBook Air stuff. I somehow would rather travel with such a nice hacking goodness here. You can even have your custom stuff in there. I think maybe it even had an FPGA or at least optional module. I mean, this is of course here hacking laptop stuff on steroids. Although I think it was only 32-bit IM6, so that was quad-core Cortex A9 Neon FPU, yeah, 1.2 gigahertz, as I said 5 years ago. So, and NDA-free data sheet and programming, also NDA-free data sheet and programming, but I think not graphic. I think this was maybe proprietary graphic. So yeah, graphics. 3D core, whatever that was. Is it not mentioned here? GPU, where would that be? Hello? Somehow they don't even list it here. There's an ongoing project to reverse engineer the significantly the 3D graphic linear state of active evolution, Wayland near Mesa aging. Not really sure what graphics is. Anyway, I didn't buy this because often this crowd stuff is too risky, and then if you ship this internationally, most people are not aware that you usually have to, unless you are totally lucky, but usually the local customs in Europe, Germany, USA and such, they want local sales tax and maybe import taxes. So that is not the most amazing And yeah, so, but this would be a little bit cool project. Yeah, maybe the Pi and 64 stuff comes close, but this kind of laptop certainly pretty cool in my opinion. Most ARM laptops seem to have basically no support. Writes Fox, let Fox. Yeah, but as you see, well, from the vendor, but there you see the difference. We usually don't care about the vendor, right? Just do it in the community, then it works. And often community stuff is better than vendor stuff anyway. Usually you've seen the Intel GMA 500, they paid tungsten graphics and whatever, and yet the graphic, so Intel financed something, yet the graphic situation there with the GPU is one of the most crappy there. And yeah, so much to the vendor is financing something and it's the biggest pile of garbage. And then I rather, although they, in my opinion, they, you see, they pay a company and the outcome is hilarious, like chaos, like unusable chaos, like bit-rotten crap. Then, in my opinion, I would call actually recurring theme how to finance this. There should much rather be, in my opinion, community funding. They should make here some $100,000 and spread this around at people who really work on this stuff and do this stuff, and instead of doing their own company funding, and at the end we have nothing anyway. And which commander might be what? Okay, some stuff scrolled. Have people boot Linux on this new gen of ARM stuff? Let me by the way check what we have there. Couple of comments, hoping the same. Wait a second, I did so many comments, seriously, what the heck? Did so many endless OS missions, it's important. What the heck, did so much stuff scroll away? Linux plus OS, okay, here we have been. Laptops, computers on the market, Pi and 64. Aftermarket is dope. So comments in the audience. Mitnick, forgot about the chat. No, I haven't, just when we talk about something and some stuff. Scrolls by endless OS mission is important. What do you mean by that? With endless OS mission, anyone heard about Librem 5? Yes, heard about this, talked about this earlier, something for another stream, otherwise this becomes too long here. My first computer experience was RISC, I believe it was Archon at school. That is amazing. Unfortunately, my first computing experience was probably 286. So that was not one of the most, well, although on the other side, I was sort of lucky that was, as much as I hated x86 assembly and the architecture, it's complex instructions architecture didn't even make it convenient, because you couldn't really move registers, so you could only move this register to there or this in and out with this registers, and so you had only few registers. So x86 is really sucked big times, but whatever, at least it was on the tracks, it was mainstream. Wanted me to try it out, cool stuff. Nice to hear this, and Librem looks great, using GNOME stack. RISC, believe cool, what RISC is believable, but cool, headmaster is not, okay, cool stuff. They have this product for privacy and social stuff, and the product name, what's this called? Good email, etc. Herta is hoping that laptop, since its first smart top releases, but they didn't get the momentum yet, even if Toshiba, they should be cheaper and more efficient to fight. Yeah, so I personally, so ARM is for me, ARM is, of course, on this smartphone stuff, ARM is of course mainstream. And then the question is also, do you buy a ARM $700 or over 700 base price ARM laptop SKU, or do you buy some ARM smartphones where you can, with this Samsung DeX or others, as I've shown also in this on this channel, use your Linux virtual container stuff and also run your ARM stuff close to. Sorry, getting fresh here. Anyway. So yeah, maybe you have one device and with the Samsung DeX desktop experience stuff, plug-in stuff, maybe saves you a ton of money and is usable, at least ARM anyway. So as much as it is mainstream on smartphone, for me, ARM is already becoming a little bit legacy, and I'm already mentally preparing for RISC-V being the next universal architecture for everything. Certainly only a matter of time that we get a RISC-V in everything. Hopefully, anyway. And then, yeah, and that is the real community stuff, but because it's community invented, well, at least from some university, but there is a ton of community stuff. Even Clifford Wolf from Rock Linux creator fame done an open source Pico RISC-V, but also working and defining the bit RISC-V bit extensions there with all the bit instructions and stuff. So yeah, it's in some ways at least the true community and an open effort and patent free and license free, royalty free and stuff. Which are laptops, so Commander, Might, custom kernel, bootloader, and difficult to use another OS. And Vivante, it was Vivante or that Etnaviv. Okay, all right, okay, Etnaviv. But again, this was 32-bit, and yeah. Anyway, this no, what do we have here? This Novena, or what was it? Anyway, actually, fun fact, I googled it. I searched it a few times on eBay. Didn't ever find one of those. Would somehow be yeah, a little bit cool of this kind of, but certainly the 1,000 or how many packers were there? 730. So I'm not sure. They produced maybe 1,000 or I don't know what. Certainly hard to find nowadays. But yeah, such kind of community project would certainly be pretty cool. We could probably certainly build something like this with a Raspberry Pi or Pi and 64. And then interesting zero because I misread in Pi 0 because Mr. Robert 8 used it as a payload to deliver vector for temperature control. Yeah, I can certainly, that's what I meant. And was it Linus Torvalds? What do you mean with Linus Torvalds? Or with some ARM laptop maybe? Anyway, I think we're mostly through. The big question is it really worth it? In my, at least this SKUs, you barely save anything over Intel SKUs, and then you have certainly, well, although shorter battery life on x86, but more performance and more compatibility. And yeah, but leave me in the comments below what you think about the situation. And certainly it's way more flexible. In a way, if it would like be half the price, then certainly that would be no brainer. But for a relatively full price, yeah, not really. Unless, of course, you are totally needs a battery life. If you're really road warrior, like traveling the world in your bus or something, live off grid with solar panels or stuff, then maybe that is totally worth it. So twice, maybe nearly twice as long battery life or something. But otherwise, yeah. Raspberry Pi Zero, really cool device for payload delivery and also monitor mode and packet injection. Yeah, exactly what I, nice little travel box, right? But not a paid advertisement, just like had to. A fun fact, this was also when I ordered this 7 months ago or whenever, Pi Hub, not a paid advertisement, it is usually sold out, right? You can't get it for $5 and then it's usually sold out. It's a little bit, yeah, it's like they don't even want to manufacture more because they I'm not sure. Well, with the wireless, I think the wireless usually is 20, so that is not that cheap. Although it's still relatively cheap, but yeah. Anyway, it's like they only want to sell the more expensive wireless to make any profit, and the other one they only produce more quantities just for the marketing. I don't know, a little bit strange in my opinion. And I like to see PowerPC come back now that the ISER is open source. Yeah, PowerPC. I probably don't think there will be a huge comeback because as much as I was on PowerPC, I never really realized how cluttered the instruction set architecture is. We probably can make a dedicated video about this. I think I've not made one. Probably should make one. As much as we have PowerPC of G4, G5, IBM Power P series and the P3, that or even and other Freescale. By the way, fun fact: soon we will have another PowerPC board here of old vintage fame here on this channel. If you wanna subscribe for something like that. But PowerPC, in my opinion, is too convoluted of an instruction set architecture. and that is probably, you see also the G5, the IBM 970 MP and stuff was relatively high power for the performance level it delivered, and you can't probably not really build a energy efficient, well, at least even IBM struggled, right? So the inventor of PowerPC of IBM fame struggled to deliver more energy efficient silicon for Apple back in the day in 2005 or so. And this is why eventually, certainly, Apple made the switch to Intel MacBooks, right? They could, I mean, it was hilarious, right? They could not even, they had a 64-bit PowerPC workstation, but not a 64-bit laptop, and not even dual core, right? All the other eventually had dual core, and Apple neither had dual core nor 64, so except internal prototypes allegedly. So yeah, not really sure, but we will make a video. Not only will we continue to do PowerPC with the PS3, with testing T2 on the G4, G5, and soon embedded, old-fashioned vintage embedded boards coming up here. And then, yeah, I watched Mr. Robot, but only the first season or something. Also need to work too much and build a YouTube channel, can't watch too much TV. But the first season or so, or maybe two, I don't know, some years ago I watched. Yeah, so we will certainly make a more dedicated video taking a look on the instruction set architecture, the internal decoding or encoding, what we have done already. If you're interested in this, I made this already for RISC-V. A brief live overview. We can do another one for PowerPC and ARM and for x86. It will be fun. But yeah, so PowerPC, not the greatest hopes there. And if IBM and nowadays maybe the research money of IBM is even less on PowerPC, as much as that is not their most primary business. And even when the research money was maybe even higher with Apple's contract backing there, and even Motorola Freescale stuff and so on back in the day, as not all of those were from IBM, they were also from Motorola Freescale and stuff there on Apple's parts with G4 and so. And yeah, even IBM couldn't do this, and then I would not think that third parties make this most power efficient. Although there was PA Semi right with power efficient, but that is a story for another day. So yeah, not the greatest hopes, but sorry if I disappoint you, but probably certainly ARM and then RISC-V, I guess. Hope you learned something. As usual, if you have any more comments for this kind of ARM laptops, looking forward to your comments below, and hope to see you soon for all the next videos and fun stuff to come.